Okay, think about everything you learned in history class about where we came from. What if I told you we might actually need to rewrite page one? Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a genuinely fascinating hypothesis about our deepest past. It's a journey that suggests humanity's grandest history might actually be hiding right in plain sight, literally woven into our most ancient myths, carefully encoded in ancient architecture, and mapped across the stars. It completely challenges how we look at the entire timeline of human civilization, and it asks us to fundamentally consider if we're missing a major foundational chapter in the whole story of us. So let's just dive right into this. To really understand the mystery here, we first have to look at our baseline nature as a species. The urge to explore, as this quote brilliantly captures, is so deeply embedded in human character. We know that hominids have fundamentally always been explorers. I mean, if we look back at our ancestors, like Homo erectus, roughly 1.9 million years ago, they didn't just stay put. Almost immediately in the geological timeline, they packed up and undertook these astonishingly distant travels, completely without GPS, I might add. They migrated out of Africa. They spread across the globe. This innate, relentless drive to see what's over the brow of the next hill is really a defining trait of our lineage. But when we look at the timeline of human history, a glaring puzzle emerges. We just established that Homo erectus was out there exploring the globe 1.9 million years ago, right? Well, fast forward, and anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, evolved roughly 300,000 years ago. Yet, according to established archaeology, complex societies and major settlements didn't really begin to emerge until about 10,000 years ago. That is a staggering gap in the middle. So the crucial question here is, why? 300,000 years. That's thousands upon thousands of generations of anatomically modern, highly capable humans just, waiting around. Given that our ancestors were restless explorers who rapidly spread across all these different environments, why on earth did it take hundreds of thousands of years for them to finally develop complex settlements? This massive 300,000-year gap fills researchers with immense puzzlement, and it raises a really provocative possibility. Maybe it actually didn't take that long. Maybe things were happening that simply haven't been captured in the physical archaeological record yet. Now, obviously, huge parts of the world haven't been studied by archaeology at all, but the lack of physical artifacts alone isn't the only reason to suspect a missing chapter. The source material we're exploring today argues that archaeology desperately needs a history of ideas to go right alongside a history of physical things. Because think about it, wood rots, stone erodes, metals rust. Physical artifacts inevitably disappear over millennia. But a powerful idea, a story, a myth, a belief, that can be passed down through oral tradition, surviving long after the original civilization has turned to dust. A powerful idea can manifest again and again throughout the human story. And one of the absolute most resilient surviving ideas is deeply tied to our mortality. Now, it's totally natural for humans to wonder what happens to us when we die, right? But it's truly staggering that geographically isolated cultures separated by vast oceans and entirely different eras in time, share identical, highly specific spiritual ideas about the afterlife. This concept, which is often called the path of souls, is found stretching from South to North America, way over to ancient Egypt, across to ancient India, and right into ancient Mesopotamia. And they don't just share a vague heaven concept either. They share the exact same highly detailed cosmic itinerary. It's almost like they were all playing the same ancient video game. In all these distinct cultures, it was believed that upon death, the soul makes a literal leap into the heavens, specifically journeying along the Milky Way, which was explicitly called the path of souls. And along this stellar path, the soul doesn't just float peacefully. It has to run a literal obstacle course. It is actively confronted by strict challenges, monsters, and closed gates. Finally, the soul's ultimate destiny is judged based on the exact course of the life that person lived on Earth. So we really have to weigh two possibilities here. Did incredibly distant cultures just happen to hallucinate the exact same Milky Way obstacle course? The hypothesis presented in our source material argues this stretches way past mere coincidence. Instead, it suggests we're actually looking at an inherited legacy, an idea passed down from a remote, yet-to-be-discovered common ancestor to cultures all around the world, which then took on a life of its own within those later distinct civilizations. And it turns out the clues aren't just spiritual, they are deeply astronomical. Consider a phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes. Our planet rotates at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, but it also has a very slow wobble on its axis, exactly like a spinning top as it begins to lose momentum. Because of this massive wobble, the star that our North Pole points to changes over time. Polaris hasn't always been our North Star.
Furthermore, this wobble changes our view of the zodiac constellations along the sun's path. At the key marker of the ancient year, the spring equinox, the sun rises against the background of a specific constellation. Right now it's Pisces, eventually it's going to be Aquarius, and 12,500 years ago it was Leo. Back in the 1960s, a monumental book called Hamlet's Mill, written by historians of science from MIT and Frankfurt University, proposed that knowledge of this complex celestial wobble is vastly older than the Greeks, and was mapped by ancient peoples long before we ever thought possible. To really understand why this is so mind-bending, we have to wrap our heads around the number 25,920. That is the exact number of years it takes for the Earth's precessional wobble to complete one full cycle through the zodiac. Imagine trying to track a process that unfolds so incredibly slowly. It's a cosmic cycle that is almost impossible to observe without highly organized, sophisticated multi-generational record-keeping.
And to put that into perspective, the Earth's wobble shifts the backdrop of the stars by exactly 1 degree every 72 years. If you hold your finger up to the distant horizon, the movement of the stars over a 72-year period, so an entire human lifetime, is only about the width of your finger. It is an incredibly subtle shift. Without modern telescopes or computers, you'd have to carefully pass that tiny fraction of data on from great-grandparent to great-grandchild flawlessly for centuries just to notice it was even happening. According to the researchers behind Hamlet's Mill, this ancient ancestor culture didn't just passively notice the wobble. They calculated it, and they locked it into a very specific mathematical code. The master key is 72, representing 1 degree of precessional shift. But from that base number, a whole mathematical system is born. Take 72, add half of itself, which is 36, and you get 108. Take 108, divide it by 2, you get 54. Multiples of 72 give you massive figures, like 432,000. These specific precessional numbers basically become a mathematical celestial fingerprint. And here is where the mystery becomes absolutely beautiful. This precise astronomical math is inexplicably hidden in plain sight, tucked into global mythology all over the world. In ancient Egypt, the myth tells us that it's not 70 or 75 conspirators who kill the god Osiris and dump him in the Nile. It is exactly 72. In ancient India, the sacred text known as the Rig Veda is meticulously composed of exactly 432,000 syllables, a direct multiple of 72. We even see it physically built into massive stone structures, like the ancient temple complexes in Cambodia.
Take the bridge to Angkor Thom in Cambodia. You have these sculpted figures holding the body of a massive serpent named Vasuki, and they're engaging in a mythological act called churning the Milky Ocean. It is a literal physical metaphor of a churning cosmic mill, the Earth's wobble. On the left side of the bridge, there are exactly 54 statues. On the right side, there are exactly 54 statues pulling the serpent. Add them together, and you have 108 figures. 108 is a core precessional number derived directly from 72. The architecture itself is functioning as a massive cross-cultural mathematical clock depicting the Earth's celestial wobble.
When you stack all of this together, the inexplicable 300,000-year gap in our physical timeline, the globally shared spiritual journey along the Milky Way, and this incredibly advanced celestial math hidden in our oldest stories and monuments, you reach a stunning hypothesis. As our source concludes, we are very likely looking at ancestral knowledge that was discovered by an almost unbelievable forgotten ancestor civilization, mapped through the stars, and purposefully passed down from a specific, single common source before spreading widely around the globe. Which leaves us with this final, thrilling thought. If our distant ancestors were capable of tracking a 26,000-year cosmic cycle, and if they successfully transmitted that data across millennia by encoding it into the math of our most enduring myths and monuments, what else is missing from the human story? And what legacies are we leaving behind today? As we continue to dig into the Earth and look up at the stars, it's pretty clear the greatest mystery waiting to be discovered might just be ourselves. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.